to be astonished.
I need to show you another way to solve quadratic equations, and it's going to be called the quadratic formula.
Perhaps I could be of some assistance.
Now, we already have one way. We use the zero property. Remember the zero property? We get a zero on one side of the equation, and then we factor to create multiplication. And when two things multiply to zero, it can only be true when one of them is zero. So we figure out what x needs to be in each of the factors to make each factor zero.
Pay attention, boys. I'll show you how it's done.
Let me show you how we did it. For instance, in this equation, we got a 0 on one side by subtracting 15 from both sides. Okay, now we have to create multiplication, so we factored. You have to trust me on the factoring. Minus 3 times 4 is minus 12, and 5 times x is 5, so a minus 12 and a 5 give me the minus 7. Okay? Now, I'm going to check to see what x needs to be to make each of these separate factors be 0. The x minus 3, if I solve it, x has to be 3 to make that be 0. Of course, I could have done that in my head, couldn't I have? Some of them are a little bit more difficult, though. The 4x plus 5, if I solve that to be 0, I'll subtract 5 from both sides, and then divide by 4, and that answer is minus 5/4. Note that these all have two answers, don't they? This one has two answers. X is 3, and x is minus 5/4. And that was how we used the zero property to solve quadratic equations.
Hey, wait just a minute.
Now let me show you this new way. The quadratic formula looks like this. Wait a minute, don't go crazy. Any quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is the number, the constant if you would, sitting by itself. That's true. Don't get nervous. And if we find out what negative of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a is, that's two answers because of the plus or minus, we will have those two answers.
Just remember that this thing isn't as black as it appears.
Let me show you how we do it.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
We're going to do the same problem using the quadratic formula.
Pay attention to me, boy. I'm not just talking to hear my head.
Remember, these were the two answers we got before using the zero property. We better get those same two answers. First, as always, I'm going to get a 0 on one side. You don't have an a, b, and c until you have a 0. So I'll subtract 15 from both sides. And there we go. Now, a is the number in front of x squared is 4. B is the number in front of x is negative 7. And c is the number sitting by itself is negative 15.
If you don't start making more sense, we're going to have to put you in a home.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, we're going to take those values and put them into the quadratic formula, which is this. You don't have to memorize it, just have to know how to use it. Negative of negative b, or negative of negative 7 if you would, and then I put a negative 7 in for b, and a 4 in for a, and a negative 15 in for c, and let's see what we get. I'm going to get 7 plus or minus the square root of 49. Remember, the 49 came from the negative 7 squared, plus 240. Now where did that come from? Negative 4 times negative 15 is 240. All over 8. That's 2 times 4. Alright? Okay. Now, 49 plus 240 is 289.
Oh, it didn't work.
Yeah, wait a minute. The square root of 289
The important thing is, isn't your final answer?
is 17. Now there's two square roots. There's positive 17 and negative 17. So we can do 7 plus 17 over 8 and 7 minus 17 over 8. 7 plus 17 over 8 is 24 eighths. 7 minus 17 over 8 is minus 10 eighths. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. 24 eighths is 3. And negative 10 eighths is negative 5 fourths. So we really did get the same dad-burn answers, didn't we? How cool is that?
Believe it or not.
Oh, no you don't.
I know what you're saying. Why would we go to all that trouble to get the same two answers that we could have gotten just using the zero property? Well,
How about little fires, Scarecrow?
let's try this one with your beloved zero property. We know we need to get a 0 on one side, so we'll add 3 to both sides. And now, what is it time to do? We have to factor, right? Okay. Well, go ahead, factor it. What two numbers multiply to 3 and add up to 5? Come on. I'm waiting. It's not factorable. It's not factorable. And in fact,
I don't understand.
most equations, we've been spoiling you, most equations are not factorable. You can keep trying to factor until the cows come in. It's not going to be able to be factored. So what do? That's why we need the quadratic formula. A will be 1 in this case, because there's nothing there. B will be 5, and C will be the number sitting by itself, 3. Let's put these numbers in. They're not going to be pretty, but it's going to work. Let's see. Negative 5 plus or minus, etc. is going to give me negative 5 plus or minus 25 minus 12, the square root of 25 minus 12 over 2, which is negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. You understand there's two answers. Negative 5 plus the square root of 13 over 2, and negative 5 minus the square root of 13 over 2. Got it? Now we like to write it shorter, so instead of writing both of those, we're going to write negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. It just shortens our work. So get used to seeing that.
Genius. That's what it is. Sheer genius.
Oh, that's the cows coming in. Okay.
Oh, I'm dying!
Let's do another one. Sometimes it's going to take even a little bit more work. Well, in this case, A is 2, B is negative 2, and C is negative 1. This seems pretty straightforward. We put it into our quadratic formula, and we get the following.
Is that your final answer?
Well, 2 plus or minus the square root of 12 over 4 seems like it definitely is two answers, but it's not in simplest form. And you're required to put radicals, remember, in simplest form.
Make it so.
Let's do it. The square root of 12 can be broken up into its perfect squares and whatever's left over. So, break it up into its perfect square 4 and the garbage left over 3. Now the square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so I've simplified the radical. Now I need to simplify the fraction. I note that the top can be factored. Okay? Don't even think of canceling things that are added, though. Okay, that's not the way to simplify fractions. We're going to factor the top. There's a 2 comes out of both of those things. Okay, I divided 2 by 2, and I divided 2 radical 3 by 2. Now, I can cancel.
Oh,
Alrighty then.
the 2 with the 4, and I get my final answer. And that actually is my final answers. 2 answers.
Excellent.
Get the idea? Now I want you to understand these are 2 answers. 1 plus the square root of 3 over 2 and 1 minus the square root of 3 over 2. Now, the square root of we can get an approximate answer if we need to on the calculator to make something usable in real life. The square root of 3 is about 1.732. So 1 plus 1.732 over 2, and that's approximately one of the answers. The other answer, 1 minus the square root of 3 over 2, would be 1 minus 1.732 over 2, which would be negative 0.732 over 2, which would come out to be approximately negative 0.366. So I don't want you to think these are some magical numbers that are not useful in real life. Okay, so we can use the quadratic formula all the time, but generally we just use it when we can't factor. Okay, go try it. Do that homework.